Hey everybody, welcome back to FeedbackLoop. I'm Joey.
And I'm Jeremy.
And this is, I guess, we rounded out our whatever the Stomp Pop Kings last episode.
Yeah,
and
it was both of us.
Yeah, it was both of us. We did the cop out answer because we're both cool.
Yeah.
But then we picked our new genre at the end of last episode. It was New York death metal. So stay tuned for our picks of that. Please don't click away or hit the back button or whatever. Stay till the end.
I'm excited, and I kind of feel like a little nervous and worried because we have not planned for the contingency of what happens if we both pick the same album. Not that I necessarily expect that, but the thought crossed my mind that it is possible that we might pick, and we have no idea what will happen. I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah. I mean, if it ever happens, then it'll just be a fun little thing to do. Maybe then we can both be the kings again.
We'll figure it out live. We'll both be a loser and nobody gets to be at that point. What else have you? So in addition to the New York death metal, what else have you been up to this past fortnight?
Well, so the biggest news is that Pile has released a new single in this past 2 weeks called Poison. Or Poisons, not Poison.
Song.
Yeah. And I really dig it. It's very different than a lot of the stuff they've been doing lately. I know you listened to it too, and you were just like, whoa, that was wild.
Yeah, it's a trip.
But it's like, so it starts off with this really like offbeat, just chaotic energy. And then it, like, as the chorus comes, it starts to turn into, like, I guess, a more typical song structure. But I just really like the energy of it. And man, it's just made me even more excited for the new album. Like, I don't know if I can wait until February for that.
A choice.
I know I don't have a choice. Maybe I'll drive to Nashville and go meet Rick and be like, give me the album, please.
get an early access. That'd be fun. I'm sure they can do that kind of stuff like easily with Bandcamp, but
yeah,
I think that's where they release a lot of their music anyway.
I'll just email them and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But what have you been listening to?
Gosh, I don't know, man. So I do know. I don't mean to say I don't know. I've been kind of scattered all over the place. We've also during this period been trying to nail down our top 5 albums of 2022, as it were. So aside from those, I haven't been doing a whole lot of exploration. I did attempted to listen to, I'd say. I started to listen to the Low album that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I think it was in the previous episode, the Things We Lost in the Fire. And I think I went into that album with an expectation because the name Low sounded familiar.
Yeah.
But it did not sound anything like what I was expecting. And so it's like, okay, I'm not in the mood for this right now. So I listened to like a or two, and it's like, okay, it's not repulsive, but it's not what I was expecting. It's not what I want right now. So I dabbled in that a little bit. But the biggest, or I guess the most recurring album that I've been listening to is the New Crosses EP. Dropped the Chino Moreno's
Cross hell yeah
side project. They dropped an EP called Permanent Radiant, and it's pretty good. It's pretty groovy. It's pretty vibey. It's got some bangers on it. It's got lots of cool experimental stuff as they do. So that was fun to be listening to.
I'll need to add that to my ever-growing list of things that I need to check out, but end up just revisiting stuff I've listened to 1,000 times for some reason.
I have added 3, 4, 5, 6 albums in the past 2 weeks. 6 albums to my backlog list. So I'm there with you. I do want to listen to some of those in the upcoming, but we can talk about that in a bit, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be. I guess speaking of song or albums that I've heard before, not 1,000 times, not this one at least. I had like an experience with the album In Rainbows by Radiohead the other night, and it was a weird coincidence because I ended up posting something in our Discord about the Jigsaw falling into place like guitar. I was just like, this guitar is sick. And then Jarrett, you said like the next day or something there was a video recommended in your YouTube.
Yeah, it was just last night.
I felt like I was in the Matrix. Like, it was just weird.
Yeah,
But
to finish that thought, there was a video that popped up in my recommended videos that is titled "Radiohead might have written the perfect acoustic riff," and it is the guy playing the Jigsaw riff.
and it's a real good riff. Like, it's
It
just
is.
great. And that album, I kind of like slept on it because there was a long period where I don't know if it was just like my idea of what a Radiohead fan was, or like just my ideas about the band, or it just wasn't the music that I was into at the time.
Mhm.
But like when that album dropped, I was like not really into Radiohead and I didn't care. And then
Right.
as I started to learn like more about Radiohead and get more into them, it was just an album that I never really like. I listened to a lot of their earlier stuff more than their later stuff. So I listened to like In Rainbows maybe like 2 or 3 times, and I just decided to go back to it because I saw like the album art pop up somewhere for whatever reason. And
As it does.
man, it's just a really good album. Like
It's
it's
got
such,
vibes.
yeah, it's such a distinct vibe too. Like I feel like there's their other albums are kind of like, which maybe it's because I spent a long time listening to their earlier stuff that it had all a very like the same sound. Not the same sound. I mean, they obviously like change their sound a decent amount from album to
Yeah.
album, but like it's not what I'm used to whenever I think of Radiohead, I guess. And it's just really good. And adding into that, the fact that whenever they released it, they let the fans pay whatever they wanted to get the album. Like that's just super cool. That's always one of those things that I've thought like independently, like
Yeah.
if I ever released songs, I'd want to do something like that. Like it would just be, it's a really cool model. I know it's not necessarily sustainable for somebody who hasn't like got their foot in the door yet, is
Right.
it? But
Well,
it's
I don't know. I'd argue that it's more it's easier to pull off, I think, from that because you're gaining like recognition, you're gaining clout when you
yeah,
release something for free. That's so easy for someone to access, right? So like a lot of rappers drop mixtapes and stuff for free when starting out, just to kind of like generate hype and kind of say like, hey, this is what I'm about. Follow me if you want more, and then start charging for it. So I feel like it might be a better career move, perhaps,
yeah,
to do that stuff earlier. That's interesting that Radiohead did it. I didn't know that they did that for that album. They're just a multifaceted band group.
they really are.
I
It's
guess
nuts.
band doesn't feel like it does them justice. You know, and
Group,
this is coming from me who hasn't listened to a whole lot of Radiohead, but like
yeah,
obviously they're revered for what they have done in music, which is super cool. I also listened to that album yesterday just because I was like, that's the only Radiohead album that I've really like given time to. And then you mentioned it, I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna listen to the whole thing. Agreed. Great vibes all the way through. I also listened to the new Little Sims album called No Thank You, which was a surprise drop for me. I wasn't anticipating it. I didn't know that it was happening. She just released an album last year, so I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. Listen to it. Pretty solid all the way through. It's got a lot of good catchy songs on it, and a lot of like really heartfelt and meaningful songs and stuff as well. So it's just an all around good hip hop album. If you're kind of into that headspace, I will be continuing in that headspace. I think for the next few weeks, because two of the albums that I mentioned, well, teased, I guess, that got added to my backlog. One of which came. I don't remember where I saw this recommendation. I think somehow Wu Tang Clan came up in a discussion, or MF Doom came up. I think both of them, some combination of MF Doom and Wu Tang Clan came up. But I found an album, or was recommended an album called Sour Soul by Bad Bad Not Good and Ghostface Killah, which is it's a collaboration album. Bad Bad Not Good is like a Canadian jazz instrumental hip hop band,
yeah.
and Ghostface Killah obviously being from Wu Tang Clan, they did a collaboration album. One of the tracks features MF Doom, so it just sounds like something that'd be very interesting and fun to check out from a hip hop perspective. So
When did that
hopefully
come
I'll have
out?
some time to listen. Let me check. I'm not 100% sure. It's relatively old, I think.
Oh, okay. I was about to say I
20,
didn't.
2015, so I guess not that
Oh,
old.
okay. Because I've never heard that before. I thought I had heard everything MF Doom did and collaborations, but hell yeah, I just have something else to look for now.
Yeah, I think he's just featured on one song on that. So it's not like a big collaboration with him per se, but there's one track, it's called Ray Gun, that features MF Doom. The other hip hop album, Levi, our friend Levi, actually recommended to me. I was talking the other night, and I asked him just out of curiosity what he'd been listening to and if he'd heard anything, and he recommended an artist named Cal Scruby. Cal Scruby? It's Scruby, so I guess it'd be Scruby more than Scrubby. But he's a white rapper, and the song I listened to that Levi recommended was pretty solid. It's very much a vibe of something that Levi would listen to.
Yeah.
As he is now, I guess, more so than
okay.
who he was back when we all worked at the pizza place. But I kind of like it. It had an interesting vibe, and lyrically, it was like he's got some chops.
So well, shit, man.
That's also something that I'm interested in listening to in the upcoming weeks.
Cal Scruby. Okay.
Cal Scruby. The album he just dropped this year is called Casino, in all caps.
Well, shit. I can't say I'm 100% in a hip hop headspace right now, but I know that Levi recommended Trademark to Skydiver. I got my words mixed up because it's Skydiver, but
Skydiver.
I liked that whenever he had me listen to that.
Levi's got his finger on the hip hop pulse.
Like he knows what's going on.
He's aware. He's got feelers out there. That's his wheelhouse. So he's usually got some good recs. He also tried to recommend me. This is just totally anecdotal. He recommended J. Cole to me when we were working at the pizza place, and he recommended what's it called, Sideline Story, I think. Let me confirm that real quick. He recommended one of J. Cole's earlier albums. And boy, was that a miss for me. Yeah, it's called The World, The Sideline Story. Came out in 2011. Boy, was that album a miss for me. Could not get into it. Didn't have the patience. Didn't give a shit about it. I probably still don't like that album.
Oh shit.
Later, I think I actually mentioned this because we did it For Your Eyes Only on our podcast. That like later, I was over at Levi's house one night and we went and got White Castle or something, and he's like, dude, you got to listen to this. I know you don't like J. Cole, but I think you're gonna love this album. And it's how I actually found For Your Eyes Only, and that's one of my favorite hip hop albums now.
So, well, shit, man, it worked out. It all worked out in the end.
He was planting seeds.
Yeah,
Levi's just trickling things in my subconscious that eventually bloom into some good shit. So hopefully Cal Scruby comes through as well. Scruby.
Scruby.
It's such a weird last name.
Yeah.
I guess even the combination of Cal being his first name is also kind of strange. Cal Scruby. Sponsored by Cal Scruby.
Yeah, there we go.
We're not actually sponsored.
Cal Scruby, if you're out there, sponsor our podcast.
Yeah, please. Cal Scruby, if you hear this, send us a fucking message somewhere on social media. You can find us at FeedbackLoop somewhere, at FBL Podcast.
We'll go back to the old format just to do one of your albums.
Yeah. I'll absolutely do that. I'm not against reverting to the album format for special occasions, or even maybe as like an ongoing like side thing every once in a while. But that's a discussion for off the episode. Yeah. Have you been exploring or putting feelers out in any other directions?
The only other new thing that I listened to this week was, so I'm subscribed to a channel called Vapor Memory on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they'll just put out like full albums of like vaporwave adjacent music. And there was this album called Fish Season by a band called an artist called Fish 2, and it just caught my eye because it reminded me of Fishman's Long Season.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So I clicked on it, and it was a journey. Like, it was one of the most ambient albums I've heard in a very long time, but it was just like, it just hit me at the exact right time, because it was just this very triumphant build, and like it had these ebbs and flows where it had a little bit of like bittersweet notes throughout it. And I don't know, I was just like, it was a time where I surprisingly wasn't playing RuneScape. I was just kind of like sitting there, and I think I was even like working. I was actually working, and It was, I don't know, it was just a really good time where like there's a lot of other ambient albums where there's like, I guess you could almost call them like instruments or like actual musical pieces that kind of go in there. Not to say that this album wasn't musical, because it was, but it was definitely like about as close to background noise as I've heard
Yeah,
an ambient album get in a very long time.
it's just
And I enjoyed it for
atmosphere.
that. Yeah, it was pure atmosphere. It was awesome.
That's fun. You reminded me. You jogged my memory talking about vapor memory. That was a weird way to say that, I guess, but it was unintentional. Uh, I actually have a couple of albums marked in my YouTube, like watch later, because vapor memory just kind of like uploads full album YouTube things. I'll have them saved in my normal backlog, I guess. One of which is on vapor memory. And I don't know if you recommended this to me. I don't remember anything about this album, but it's called Windows 96 by
Oh, hell
Magic
yeah.
Peaks.
Yeah.
Or
I
is
think
Magic Peaks the album? I don't know how they
Windows
stuff.
96 was the artist.
And Magic Peaks the album. But
Yeah.
that's in my to-do list as well. So maybe look at that. And there's also another album here that I don't recall adding to my list called Little Ghost by the group Moonchild, which
Moonchild.
has 2.7 million views. So I'm sure it's good. But I have no idea
Moonchild
what
sounds
groups going
familiar.
into that. So that'll be
I don't know.
maybe that'll be my priority listen for the coming weeks. Just see what the hell's going on there. That'll be
Well, have you
good
been
shit.
listening to any other stuff, or are you ready to throw down
Oh,
your?
I don't think I have. It's just been I don't know the past 2 weeks haven't been very musical for me.
Oh
I've just
shit!
been kind of in like a weird space where I haven't been listening to a whole lot. I'm like I'm bad at I'm constantly procrastinating, including our podcast competition, the New York death metal pick. I did not pick until today because I'm just absolutely horrible, and procrastination is a problem that I have in every aspect of my life. But I did pick one, and I'm very excited about my pick. But I want to hear your pick first.
Okay, okay. I'll give you my pick first. This one, I'm going to preface it that not necessarily do I have a ton of confidence that I'm going to win. I think I could, but I feel such confidence in this pick in the fact that I feel like I've actually done the genre justice by picking this band. I feel
Mm,
like it's the most true to the actual genre as I've gotten so far. So I'm happy
that
about that at
is,
least.
yeah, that's very exciting. I will probably not like it.
Yeah. Well,
Just because that's
so
something that I like. I realized like as I was listening to a lot of New York death metal, is that like there's so much of it that just sounds so like samey to me. It's just
yeah,
like a lot of like blast beats and pig squeals and stuff, and it's just like it's not entertaining to me. It's not my kind of
yeah,
metal. So my pick actually went more on like a technical like melodic death metal side than just pure death metal.
yeah. Like that is something I noticed, which is I did try to stray away from the typical like what you'd hear in like the 90s
Yeah,
death metal, because I mean there's a bunch of huge death metal names, like founding
sure.
people of death metal out of New York, which were all coming up every time I tried to search for New York death metal. But this
Yeah,
one, it's a newer band, and they actually had a sound that I like, because I noticed upon listening to all this that while I used to love death metal, I don't know if I ever loved like death metal at its core,
right.
because it never stood out to me. It was just like, yes, this is metal. Okay, I
We get it.
understand it.
Yeah.
But so enough pretext. The band was Gravesend, and the album was Preparations for Human Disposal. And the reason I picked it is because it still has a lot of the core values, I guess, of death metal, but it's a much more modern take on it. Like this album came out in
Okay.
2021, and the production on it sounds a lot better than most of the other death metal I was hearing. It not only does it have like the typical like heavy fast like beats and music, but it also
Right.
has like some slower parts. It has some like electronic influences in it. It has like, I guess the vocalist, it's not just like the strict guttural growling he does, and there were no like pig squeals or anything that I
Right.
heard in the album. So, which is always something that I was kind of like, that's a little bit too much, like I was like, I
Right.
but I think it was also tainted by the fact that there was like the whole crunk core thing going on whenever I was in high school, and I would hear the pig squeals and that stuff, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
this is dumb. But yeah, they have a bunch of like, they have their fast paced songs. Like there's a track called From Rikers to the Grave, and that one's really fast paced and cool, and it actually keeps my attention. And another thing, all the songs are like 2 minutes long, so it's like
Oh, there
nothing
you
is
go.
drawn out, and it's just a nice, easy listen. But then there's this song called Verrazano Floater, and the first half of it is actually like well paced, and it's not just like trying to fucking
Eat
blow
through
right
it.
by you,
Yeah.
like beat your head in. And then it ends with the blast beats, but then it immediately goes into like this. I can't tell if it's an actual like overblown like bass guitar or if it's like a synth that they put a bunch of effects on. But the next song is called Scurrying, and it just like is this nice little bass kind of interlude to the song after it, but it has its breaks in there, so it's not just like beating you over the head with a stick the entire time, and it's actually like pretty listenable and melodic.
That's awesome. That is relieving to hear. It sounds like it's a very dynamic album, and I think we might actually have a good competition on our hands
Okay.
because A, that sounds really good to me. Like I think I'm gonna like that more than I anticipated, just the way you described that. But my pick might be a little bit more well known, but it was new to me and it might be new to you, but it is 90s death metal
Oh,
from
okay.
New York. The album released in 96. The band is named called Lethargy,
Oh, okay.
and the album is It's Hard to Write with a Little Hand, which I could not find on streaming services. It is on YouTube almost in
Yeah.
its entirety. I think the only links that I could find were missing the last couple tracks, but I think it is still a very fun and dynamic album. And the reason I'm excited is because this is basically proto Mastodon
Oh, okay.
in
Yeah.
that it has Bron Daler and Bill Kelleher before
Oh,
Mastodon existed.
that's
So
perfect.
yeah, it's very much like pre-Mastodon, but like has a lot of like the death metal stuff. It's still very technical and speedy and stuff, but it's also very dynamic and kind of ebb and flowy kind of album, and you can kind of hear some of like the Mastodon roots in that stuff.
Well, I definitely like a lot of Mastodon's like earlier albums because of how heavy they are, like Remission and
Right.
Call of the Mastodon. Like that's just I really like that stuff. Even a lot of stuff that was on shit Blood Mountain, was that
Yes. Yep.
that was I couldn't remember the exact name of it. I
Yeah,
was
it's the
just like, I'm
earthy
gonna,
one.
yeah, the Earth one. But yeah, so I'm fucking pumped. Whenever you started
Yeah,
talking about it, I was like, I feel like I've heard of this band before. I actually have not heard of anything by that band. I was thinking of another band called Liturgy, not Lethargy.
mm.
So
Yeah. I was just totally surprised. I was like, wait, Bron Daler and Bill Kelleher were in a band in New York that was doing death metal before Mastodon. I'm like, that's got to be my pick. And then I listened to
yeah,
it, and I really enjoy it because surprise, we both really like Mastodon. So I don't know. It was fascinating. It's kind of like math rocky. It's very like technical, was kind of fun, but obviously it doesn't have half of the current day Mastodon in it. But I think it'll be a fun competition this week, or this episode, this fortnight.
I
Speaking
agree.
of the next upload on our channels will be our best of 2022 episode. That's going to be releasing the first week of January. And then after that, instead of having 3 weeks of uploads, there's probably going to be a gap week, maybe a whole gap fortnight, if you will, depending on the recording schedule, because I'm going to be flying back home and spending a couple weeks back home with family and friends and stuff. So the recording schedule is going to be kind of sporadic, I guess. But we will be back early next year, probably before the end of January, with another regular scheduled episode after this one to kick off the next year of Feedback Loop.
Hell yeah. One more year, dude.
One more year, man. We've been doing this since 2020, right? The beginning of
The very
2020.
beginning of
So
2020.
this is going to be entering our 3rd year.
Yeah, because we started in, I think our first recording was in was it in January or was it in March of
It'll be our
2020?
4th year. It was around March.
March, okay.
Because we did most of 2020, all of
And
2021, all of
20,
2022 now, and we'll be starting our 4th year.
yeah, kicking off
Next
year 4.
March-ish. So that's
Dude,
fucking exciting. We've been doing this for too long.
That's nuts. I didn't even realize that until right now.
It just feels like it's just part of life right now. So that's exciting. On that note, the week after this episode goes up, next week for you all, should be our top 5s of 2022. So come back next week. Let us know what albums you really liked this year. I'll probably say the same thing in that episode as well. But still, give some New York death metal bands that you really enjoy. Listen to both of the ones that we recommended, and let us know which one you think wins. And then we'll come back next week for our favorite picks of the year, which has been a grueling process for me. But I don't have anything else to say. This is the last episode that we're recording in 2022 for a regular episode, at least. So I guess stay safe through the holidays. I know this is actually coming out after Christmas, but you still got New Year's. Don't drink and drive. You know, all that good stuff. See us in the next year, and stay at FeedbackLoop.
Bye.